Hello, Once Forest Focus. Last week we spoke with a former Nottingham Forest favourite who's decided to play on at the age of 42 in Nathan Tyson. This week we catch up with a former Red who's officially hung his boots up in Paul Anderson as we reflect on that decision, his career and his future plans, plus a little bit of chat on the current Forest team. Paul, good to have you with us. How are you doing?
Yeah, very well. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad at all. Not too bad at all. Enjoying the off season. Looking forward to it all getting started again. I mean, we were saying before we started recording that this is the first relaxed summer you've had in a while. We'll get into that around retirement. But are you enjoying the break?
Yes. Look, it's crazy that I think when you're actually in it and you're in the football bubble, I don't think you realise how much of your life you sort of give to the sport, and that's not just when you're working. Actually, in the summer, you're always thinking, "What's coming next?" I've got to go back to pre-season and things like that. So you're always concentrating on staying fit and eating the right things. So for me to be able to relax, and my wife said it's the first time she's seen me on holiday where I've just been so chilled out and actually been nice to be around. So I suppose that's a compliment in itself. But yeah, it's really nice to not have to worry about what's coming normally at the start of July.
I guess it's interesting because I think you last played in the league about 2 or 3 years ago. You've been playing non-league part-time, to a decent level in that time. So what was the behind the decision to kind of officially retire now and make it, tell people you'd made that move? Was it a bit of a reluctance to let go of your career? Was it just the family situation? Was it looking forward to the future? What made you kind of pull that trigger now?
Yeah, I think it's always a difficult decision, and I think when people are outside of the world of football, they probably don't quite understand how intense the environment is. I think for me, uh, I have so many things going on in my life now, all positive. And I've got two children that I want to give my time to. And I'm nearly 36, which, look, I'm still young, I'm still fit, I'm still very capable of playing at the level I've been playing at. I spoke to the manager and he was desperate for me to continue. But like I say, I've got 3 or 4 things that I'm doing personally, and I've got two children who need my time, and I want to invest my time into them and give them the best opportunity at whatever they want to progress on and do. I don't think it's fair that it's always going to be my wife that has to compromise on her things to allow me to do what I want to do. So it was a little bit of let my wife concentrate on her career and give her a little bit of a rest away from the kids, and me to be able to be involved as much as I possibly can. So I think that's why the decision came right now.
It's Melton Town you've been playing for, is that right? Just
Yeah.
so people, yeah, cool. Is this? We'll get into what you're doing now as we go along, but is this the best place you've been at in your personal life for a while? Then, because when we spoke, I think you first came on the old podcast about 3 years ago, and I think it sounded like the end of your career. That drudge that Lewis had and Kelvin and Nathan, who all come on here, I think to find that next contract, it felt like it had taken a bit of a toll on you. Now it sounds like things are going really well for you. Is that the case?
Yeah, look, extremely disappointed that my professional career ended at about 31. It was just after COVID had hit, so that had a huge effect on the football world in the lower leagues. And I was playing at Northampton. We managed to win promotion at Wembley in the playoffs, which was an amazing thing for me to. Well, that's the last game I played. So the last game I played was winning at Wembley. So I look back on it and think, God, I finished on such a high. However, disappointed that my professional career didn't continue. Um, Obviously, because of COVID, and it had a massive effect on the whole world. And I'm not for 1 second sat here playing my violin because I didn't get to continue playing professional football. I'm very fortunate to have lived my dream. And I think just at the time, you go, well, I did have League Two clubs offering me contracts, but there was no security in it whatsoever because they didn't know whether another round of lockdown was going to happen, and was that going to cost the clubs money? And they were actually getting to be able to loan players from Premier League teams for next to nothing, because Premier League teams wanted to get experience or league experience into their young players. And every single League Two, League One club that I spoke to was like, "Look, we'd love to have you in here, and but we're going in a different direction." And um, again, it was a difficult time for me, because I had to accept that that was going to be it. But when it came, I sort of clung on for about 6 months, and it was a really difficult time mentally, because where's your next paycheck going to come from? What are you going to do to create the next career? What am I? How am I going to be able to support my family? Because I had two children. So yeah, it was a tough time. But do you know what? It was as soon as I put a date in my mind. I think it was the 1st of February. I can't remember what year it would have been. 2022, maybe 2021, 2022. I put a date in my mind that I got past the transfer window, and I said, as soon as February the 1st comes, I accept that my professional career is gone, and I move on to the next stage. And you know what? Putting that time scale on things actually made things easier, and I just had to accept where I was, and there it was. And I didn't want to go and be that guy that just went and played non-league football to earn a pay packet. I wanted to go and play for a team that meant something to me. And Melton Town is where I'm from. I'd spoke to them as a club trying to go in the right direction. What the facilities they've got now are fantastic. And they gave me an opportunity with my coaching to go, you can come here and coach, and I can use their 4G facility as an agreement with the club that I could have certain amount of hours a week to concentrate on building my own coaching school. So it just worked perfectly. It's just around the corner from my house. And like I say, I wanted to give back to my local community and my local town. And it's just fell really nicely. And sort of 3 years on, making that decision's probably put me in a really good place, ready for my future.
So you spoke about, the next step, and it's coaching. But did you know it was coaching at the time? Had you already made that decision and thought, in your mid-20s, I'm going to be a coach? Was that something you kind of fell into and have now embraced?
I think if you spoke to certain players I played with, or managers, I'd have said in my mid-20s it would never have been on the horizon. I'd have never, I'd have never considered it, really. And then as you start getting to your later, well, you just don't think football's ever going to end. It's crazy. As a young kid going through 20s, you just think it's never going to end. You think it's going to be here forever. And then you start getting to your late 20s, and you're seeing players that you've played with for however many years starting to retire, and talking about what's next, and saying how difficult the transition is. And I'd like to think I'm semi-intelligent to be able to think ahead and go, oh, football isn't going to be around forever. So, or playing's not going to be around forever. So I did my UEFA B license when I was 30, when I was playing for, might have been before 30 actually. It was when I was at Northampton, my first time round. So I did my B license then, and started to think about it, started to enjoy being around the younger age group. So when you're in and around under 18s and things, I really enjoyed it. And I felt like I had a hell of a lot of experience and knowledge to be able to pass on to that next generation. And then when I came out, which was early at 31, it was kind of, okay, what do I do? What is that next step? Because I was planning everything for sort of 35, 36, thinking that I was going to continue till that age, because I'm as fit as a fiddle, and I could have continued, and I still can continue now. And just circumstances got in that way. So it was kind of, it was forced upon me a little bit to have to progress. And then I went, you know what, I'm gonna do this out of my B license. I ended up getting the job I'm in now, and then I went in to do my A license, which I've completed, and I've had 3 years worth of 3 years worth of great experience. And I genuinely believe that I'm going to have a more successful career in coaching than I did in football,
So
in playing.
Well, hopefully so. I mean, we'll get on to your career. You had a good career, so if you do better, that's brilliant. Tell us about the job you're in now, then, and how the door opened for you. Because one of the things that I've in football, it seems to me, is you always need a bit of luck and someone to open a door for you. So how did that come about?
Yeah, so like I mentioned there, I was on my B license, and without blowing hot air up my own backside, the PFA tutors, after I'd completed my B license, um, Derby County actually contacted the PFA and said, "Have you got any standout candidates in your B license course? We're looking to bring in a part-time ex-pro. Is there anyone?" And they said, "Look, with no doubt, Paul Anderson's been our standout candidate within our group. So why don't you consider it and have a conversation?" And it went from one thing to another pretty quickly, really. So when you talk about, I don't like using the word luck, because I think I'm not sure what other word we could lose, but I think you bring everything to yourself, or you manifest it. And I think me working hard and investing all my time into that qualification, and I was very serious about it. I think that meant that actually the PFA saw me as the top candidate to, if a club ever asked them. And it just so happened that it was Derby County, and I went in and did my interview, and literally they watched me for 45 seconds, and then they went and watched a couple of others, and I was thinking, God, I hadn't done very well here. 45 seconds, they obviously don't like what they see. And then afterwards they literally just said, "Yeah, we want you to have the job." So it was amazing for me. Obviously, I know the links between Forest and Derby. It was a strange one because I played for Forest for so many years, and I have such immense pride playing for the club, such an amazing club. But then I've also represented Mansfield, obviously another local club. So it was like one of those that it was a strange one that another sort of East Midlands club came in. But where I live, you're probably limited to 2 or 3 football clubs that have got Category 1 academies, and so realistically for me, getting into one of these places, it was either Forest, Derby, or Leicester, and Forest didn't have any roles going at the time, and again Derby approached me, and that's how it came about.
Yeah, I mean, we can beep out Derby, and in the edit afterwards. Don't worry. No, it's funny because we've said this recently on the podcast with Nathan being on, and we were saying Ben Osborne was like going to Derby, and players have to make the right decisions for their families at the end of the day. So I'm sure no one holds it against you. I mean, just before we move on from coaching, tell us about the job you're doing at Derby, and then just the kind of the long-term plan for you, if there is one, what you'd like to do as you develop in the next few years.
Like I mentioned, I'm as qualified as I can be to go on and go as high as I want to. There's a pro license which I would love to do, but it's very expensive, and for right now, it doesn't really align with any of the age groups that I'm working with. So that's my future part with the qualifications. I've got another qualification this season, which is called an AYA qualification, so Advanced Youth Award. That's more focusing on the off-field things, so how to manage players, or young players, youth players, how to manage them, and more the psychology and the social side of everything. So that's a level 4 qualification, which is the same level as an A license. So yeah, youth is a real, it's really important to me, and I want to be able to give back to them right now. So that's why I'm in my role. I'm the lead or head coach for the under-15s. So that's my main job title. But the club, because of my playing experience and the knowledge that they feel that I have, they're very willing and understanding that I can go across all age groups. So I get to work all the way through from under 12s up to the under 21s, and just be in and around training and give advice to mainly the attacking players, but also because I know what it's like to go up against the defenders, I can tell the defenders what to do to make life hard for the attackers. So they want me to they want me to pass on that information and that knowledge to the next generation across all age groups. So that's where I am now. And the future, look, it's like I mentioned before, I, I genuinely believe that I'll be a better coach than I was a player. And I'll keep working, and I'll learn, and I'll try and do the best I can to get to the very top of football. And at some point, I'm not saying right now, because like I said, I want to spend time with my kids. I want to invest time with my family. And what I'm doing right now allows me to do that. And I know that as and when the time is right for me to get a first team opportunity, whether that be a coach, assistant coach, head coach, whatever that may be, when the time's right, I know that's going to take a lot of my time away from my family. So right now, I'm really happy with where I'm at with my coaching journey, and I'll keep challenging myself. And if the right opportunity comes up with under 16s, under 18s, under 21s, I'll push myself. And again, when the first team opportunity comes, I'll be ready to go for it, and hopefully I can be a big success.
Yeah, you did say head coach there. One of the things I was going to ask was, would you want to be a manager then, in the more traditional sense, in the football league, with all the pressures and everything that goes with that? So that is something that interests you then.
Definitely, definitely. Again, right now, I want to spend my time with my family. I've given my whole life up to football, and my family have had to sit in the shadows a little bit whilst I've probably been selfish and given everything to my life of being a footballer. And I feel like it's only right that I give myself a little bit of a mental and physical break for a bit of time and concentrate on what I'm doing. Um, I don't I don't want to just be the guy that gets given an opportunity at the first team and it doesn't go well because I've not got the experience in coaching, or I've not learned something, and you end up getting sacked after 3 months, which happens, and then there's zero security in it for you and your family anyway. So I'm really comfortable with where I'm at, and like I say, I don't want to jump through hoops, or I don't want to just skip steps. I want to learn everything about it. As much as I think I know loads about football, I've still got a lot to learn. And all these qualifications, going and watching different coaches and different managers, I'm really enjoying it. And I feel like I'm really building my coaching journey and learning loads. So if I'm learning loads now, it means I've still got loads to learn. So I want to make sure that my foundations are in place, ready, so that when I do get a first team opportunity, then I'll have no excuses, and I'll hopefully have already made the mistakes at levels that aren't quite as important or aren't quite as pressurized.
Before we shift into Paul's playing career, let's take just a quick word, excuse me, for our sponsors at Trent Navigation. We are recording this on Friday, so hopefully when this goes out, England are still in the Euros. Otherwise, I'll be re-recording this. But you can watch the Euros at the Trent Navigation. Tickets available from the QR code on screen if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're listening, it's via gigantic.com. But you can get tickets to watch all the England games at the Nav. And as ever, very grateful for their support, because they help us do this throughout the year, not the season, throughout the year, I should say. Right, your playing career, we touched on it a bit there about, some tough times, obviously some great times as well. How do you reflect on it as a whole, looking back to being, 8-year-old Paul Anderson growing up in Melton? I guess you'd have taken it, wouldn't you, if you knew what was coming down the line?
It's crazy. It's such a catch-22, double-edged sword situation. Part of me feels I don't regret things in life, because I think everything means you can grow, or every situation gives you an opportunity to grow and learn. I am disappointed that maybe I didn't achieve the heights that I could have done. I look back that I had an opportunity at Liverpool, and whether it was right time, right place, I'm not sure. Did I commit absolutely everything at the time? I'm not sure. Looking back, I think whenever anyone looks at anything they've done in work, I think you can always say you could have done more. So there's a little bit of disappointment that I never got to have the ultimate dream and play in the Premier League and play for England. I didn't quite achieve that. I still to this day believe I could have done that. Right place, right time, couple of injuries that set you back, the right manager at the right time, transfers going the right way at the right time. We're going to talk about it, I'm assuming, playoffs and things that on another day you could get to the Premier League. So there's obviously a little bit of disappointment there, but also I think when given the time I've had now to reflect on it, I'm so proud of what I've achieved that not many people get to play at the Championship. And I think it was only this summer where I saw a stat saying that the Championship was the second most watched league in the world after the Premier League. And you go, well, wow, like I've managed to be a part of that and I've played in that league. So I actually think when you look back and you really reflect on it, what I've achieved and what I've done, did I actually reach my full potential? Because who's to say that I should have played for Liverpool and England? It doesn't. So did I actually get the best out of myself and play at the very top? Because the clubs I've played for with Nottingham Forest, Ipswich Town, Liverpool, technically, getting to be be on the bench in the Champions League twice. Like, yeah, I didn't get to play, but you know what an experience that is, and getting to represent my country under 19s. You look at that, you go, well, you're within the best 16 in the country at that age, at that time. So yeah, I'm immensely proud of what I've achieved, and I really hope that I can pass these feelings on and be a part of someone else's journey. Hopefully they go on and do bigger and better than me, but if I can be a part of one player's career who goes on to achieve what I've done and have the experiences and live the life that I've lived, that'll be a real positive for me. If I can be a part of just one person, that would be an amazing achievement for me.
I guess when you speak of like that frustration that you had, not so much now, but a while ago, do you think that's part of the athlete's mindset that you have to have, though? Because if you think, oh, this is good, I'm really happy with this, you're probably selling yourself a little bit short. You're not going to achieve what you can do in a sense, are you?
I think the way I've been brought up with my parents and things, it's always strive for the best and give everything to your opportunities. And I think you have to have a competitive, I use the word selfish and it's probably the wrong word, but you have a very competitive, selfish, ambitious side to you. And I think if you didn't have that, no one would ever be elite in any field that they work towards. So, especially within sports, you have to be the best, otherwise, you don't make it. So, there is a side of me that you have to have that cutting edge and you have to have that cutthroat side to you to reach the top. But then there's also players out there, and if we look at the Euros now and Cole Palmer, he's very cool, calm, like seems relaxed and is enjoying it and playing it because he just loves the game. So there's no right or wrong way to be. You can still reach the top by being relaxed. It's just a different personality and a different way of doing it. So there is no right or wrong way to be. However, I think you do have to have that hunger and that desire and that ambition to get to the very top. And just because I've come out of playing doesn't mean that side of me is gone. I'm hungrier and I've got more desire in me than ever to go and be successful again and have a career on the non-side of playing that can bring me all those experiences and all the all the joys of being in football again. And I'm really looking forward to that next step.
How much do you think a player's success is in their own hands in terms of what they do on the pitch versus, you mentioned injuries, transfers, the decisions you make about which agent to sign up for? A manager comes in and, as you said, maybe he doesn't fancy you and you end up having to drop down a division. So to what degree is it solely in your hands, how much you do, and how much are outside factors influencing, what your career ends up as a body of work?
I think it's really difficult. I don't think there'll ever be an answer for that. I think if you look at players like Cristiano Ronaldo, he's put everything in his own hands. Let's be honest. Like, yeah, he could have had a serious injury at some point, or something could have happened and changed that, or a transfer might not have happened at the right time. But if there's one person that, and by the way, I'm a Messi guy, so
Yeah, me too.
on the
Yeah.
Messi side, but I have so much respect for Ronaldo on what he's done and achieved in the game, because he's grafted and he's worked and he's made sure he's the very best. So, yeah, it's is it in your own hands? Yes. It's down to me to perform. It's down to me to be the one to be selected. However, are you in total control? No. Can you control getting an injury? No. Can you control what the manager's thinking? A little bit. You can play the game and you can work hard and you can give everything, but the Ronaldo might be the best player for one manager, but he might not be the best player for the other manager. So if a manager changes and he doesn't suit his philosophy, as we saw at Man United, it doesn't matter who you are. If you don't fit what the manager is looking for, you're not going to play. So it's a really difficult, well, it's a difficult question to answer, to be honest. I think there's a lot in your own hands, but I also think there's a lot of other parts that come together that can dictate how things happen. And again, right place, right time. What club is needing a player at a certain time? Do they have injuries and they need to replace them with someone? It's one door closes, another one opens, or a door opens and then a different one closes. I don't think there's an answer for it. Deep down, if I'm honest, I think it's in your own hands. But there's lots of other factors that play a big part, and you have to try and use those factors to the best positive way to work for you. And again, with my career, did it? I sit here now, and to play over 400 times in the English leagues and cups, and then play nearly 100 times in non-league for my local team, it's amazing, really. 500 odd games at the level I've done. It's amazing.
Most of your professional games were at Forest. I was checking before I did check. You played more for Forest than for Ipswich by a small margin. Was Forest kind of the high point of your career? Because you had good time at Ipswich as well. But do you look back as Forest as where it was probably best for you?
I think if I'm being 100% honest, I look back and wish I was different at Forest, because when you're in the bubble, you don't quite realise how big the football club is. You don't realise how amazing the fans are and the facilities and things like that. And I think you take things for granted. And you got to remember, I signed for the club at 19, so very young. I signed at 19 and left at 23. So a very young person, not player, very young person. And to be living in that bubble in a pressurized cooker, I think I donated so much of my time and gave everything to it, but I maybe didn't enjoy it, because there was so much expectation, and I just gave absolutely everything to the cause. And it was always one thing happened, I always wanted the next. What was coming next? How was I going to get in the team? How were we going to get to the Premier League? And if you look at it, at my time there, I don't look at it as a failure, but we failed because we didn't get promoted. We had 2 failed playoffs, and it's crazy to think how successful I actually was in that time. But you look at it as a failure because you've not achieved the goal that you set out to. So, to answer the question, looking back, I loved my time at Forest, but in the moment, I don't think I let go, and I don't think I allowed myself to enjoy it. And I was too focused on, we've got to get promoted. I was too focused on, this is what I want, and I didn't actually get there. And I had a few injuries at Forest, which kept me out, and I could have played a hell of a lot more games for the club. And again, the way that it ended, with sort of Nigel Dougherty passing away and the club being in due diligence, and there wasn't an opportunity for me to stay at the club, even though I'd have loved to. It was just a little bit sad how it finished, really.
Mm.
But again, when I look back, really, it was probably the most successful time of my career. Um, so yeah, you mentioned about Ipswich. I think Ipswich was a better place for me, but that was because of the timings and me growing up. I was 25, 26, so you learn you learn who you are as a person, and I actually think I enjoyed my time there more just because of where I was at mentally. So again, I do look back at my time with Forest and huge fondness, and it was probably the most successful time I had. I just wish that I had more experience and to enjoy it more at the time. But I look back at it now, and I'm I'm so grateful and thankful that I had the opportunity to wear the Garibaldi, and to represent that club, because you go to the Premier League games now and you just realise the magnitude of the club and how big it is. And I'm so fortunate to have been able to represent them. And I just hope that people understand and realise that I gave 110% every single time I pulled on that shirt.
Was Billy Davies the best manager you played for? Because I speak to other players who worked with him, and most noticeably probably Kelvin and Lewis. I had a long chat with them about him, and he was unorthodox in some of the things he did, but he seemed to foster an environment by hook or by crook, whether it was playing players off against each other or however he did it, that worked. I mean, what was Billy the best you played for, and what was it like under him?
I think it's really difficult because now I'm on the coaching side, and you look back and you reflect on your playing career, and you take so many things from different managers. And I've been very, very fortunate to have played under some big, big names. So Benitez brought me in at Liverpool. He coached me a lot. I then went on to Martinez at Swansea, who's now, well, was Belgian manager, now Portugal manager, and he's had huge success with them. I've then worked with Mick McCarthy. Billy Davies had Steve McLaren, obviously, at the time, whatever people's opinions are of him, but he's an unbelievable coach. So I've been very, very fortunate to have some top coaches in my time. But with regards to my time at Forest, with Billy, I love Billy, and I know a lot of players say it. What he did, what he got out of the players, how he worked, his man management skills, I thought were very clever. You knew it was very black and white with him. You knew exactly what was expected, and if you did what he wanted, he loved you. If you didn't do what he wanted, you knew where you stood and you weren't going to play. So I have so much respect and time for Billy, and again, I'd love to see him back in football. I'd love to see him coach, because he's also entertaining off the field as well, isn't he? So for the journos, they'd love to have him back and back in the game. And again, he's someone that well, all the managers that I've had and all the owners of clubs, I'm very thankful and appreciative that they all gave me the opportunity to live my dream and play professional football. And Billy was someone who, at that time, I think got the very best out of me. And I actually think throughout my career, he probably got my best performances out of all of those appearances I've made for all of my clubs. I think my top performances probably were for Forest.
How did he do that? Because he wasn't a coach on the ground. It sounds like to me like he wasn't even there for half the week. So was it a case of man management and knowing how to push your buttons as an individual? Because he managed each player differently by the sound of it. What did he do with you personally to get the best out of you?
I think I wouldn't say he wasn't there half the time.
I was exaggerating a bit, but you know what I mean. He wasn't omnipresent, shall we say,
No,
throughout the week.
sometimes, but again, now I'm on the other side of it, and look, I'm nowhere near the levels that these guys are managing these clubs, and you have to manage up and across and down with owners and chairmen and whoever else. Um, I think at the time it was a very busy time, so like Billy was dealing with stuff off the field as well. And do you know what? His staff, especially Ned Kelly, his assistant, who I still speak to now, it, like if you have a good staff around you, you're going to get the most out of players, and he had that. Um, there was 3 or 4 members of staff that I think could have put on a session anytime, and you were going to get the best out of these players, but they had the same principles, the same morals as Billy. And you knew that if you didn't perform for them, it was going back to Billy. So he trusted his staff, which is an amazing ability to have, that you can step away from the field and allow your staff to coach players for you. So I just think Billy was a very clever man. I think he played the media really well. You knew that, or it felt very much that he was giving everything to you as a group. He was very detailed and meticulous in the information he was giving you about the opposition and things like that. And again, he's someone that I've definitely learned from, that you have to have your standards high and you have to perform in training and you have to perform in matches. If you don't, you're not going to play. And that's something that I definitely take with me in my journey. And I'm very fortunate to have had him as not just a coach or a manager, but as a mentor as well, to help me on my journey, that hopefully if I get anywhere near what he's done in the management game, it's a huge success, isn't it?
Do you think that playoff game, the first one where we finished third with Newcastle and West Brom in the league and then lost in the playoffs, was that, if you were picking out pivotal games in your career, was that one of the most pivotal? Because we should have gone up that season probably with the talent we had. It just probably went wrong in the January, I guess, seems to be the consensus. But was that one of the moments that you look back on as being pivotal to your career?
That's the difference between being a Premier League footballer or not. And if we beat Blackpool, which we should have done, but we didn't, if we beat Blackpool, I fully believe that we go on to go to the Premier League. And at half-time in the second leg, we were leading. We were going through. So, yeah, it's hugely pivotal. It's gutting when you think about it, not just for myself, but for the club, because there's nothing more that I would have loved to have seen the fans and heard the noise that there is now at the City Ground sometimes. And I was there at the Sheffield game in the playoff semi-final. Obviously, the first year in the Premier League, the noise was, never heard anything like it there. The City Ground was rocking. And yeah, part of me is gutted that I wasn't a part of that and gave that cheer and the memories to the fans. But when I go to the games and I work in the hospitality rooms sometimes now, people speak really fondly of those times, and it was a glimmer of hope and getting the club back to where they needed to be, because there'd been some pretty bad years leading up to it. So to give that hope and give some of those memories to some of the fans, and obviously for me to take with me for the rest of my life, it was just amazing time.
We're recording this, like I say, it's the 28th, so it's just before the June 30, I say deadline, but it's become a thing around PSR, and it looks like Forest are going to be doing some business. But just in general, what do you make of the current team in the Premier League, what we have in the manager? Do you like what you see, or do you think it needs quite a bit of work over the summer to get to where we need to be?
It's a really difficult question, because let's be honest, the last 2 seasons, the club have done what they've needed to do. Was the club ready for a Premier League return when Cooper got them there? Probably not. The foundations weren't quite there, but you're never going to take that away. And doing that has allowed the club to go on and spend the money it's spent to allow the club to progress. And realistically, if you look at the club and you look at the size of it and what they've done, you're probably talking a middle table Premier League team now. But you've got so much transition happening because of the Championship coming up to the Premier League. You've had to sign God knows how many players over 2 years to make you Premier League competitive, which needed to obviously happen. And again, the last 2 years have been a success. I would imagine the ambitions of the club were to stay in the Premier League. But I think then that now brings pressure this year, that you would like to think there's a little bit of stability within the squad and where it's going. You've got your new manager who came in and did what he did last year and managed to get them over the line. he'll be able to make the signings he wants to sign to play his style and how he wants to do things. So there probably needs to be a little bit more consistency with players that are there. I don't think you can keep chopping and changing and doing this. I think you have to have a core group of players that understand the standards and understand the principles of what are wanted and what are expected. And again, you need to be giving time to the managers to allow them to blend it all and have their way on it. But from my point of view, it's the club's in a very positive place, and I just would like to think there's going to be a little bit more ambition this season. So no, that's wrong. The ambition is there, and they're spending the money and they're trying to get the players. But I like to think there's going to be a little bit of a better performance, that the club will be higher up in the league, more towards the middle of the table. And a club like Forest now, with what they're doing, they should be competing for the Carabao Cups and the FA Cups. That's what the club should be trying to achieve. And I genuinely believe that over the next 5 years, and this is me just saying it, my opinion, I don't know, I would like to think the people in the board and the people at the top will be going, can we be one of those clubs that starts pushing to be a European placed club? I genuinely believe the club is big enough and the finances are there to be able to get the club into that position. But you've mentioned PSR and financial fair play and all of this stuff, that it's a little bit over my head. I don't quite understand the rules, as does nobody, and even the people who made the rules don't seem to know the rules. So you've just got to try and play the game and do as best you can. And similar to last year, if you get a punishment, are you going to be better than the punishment? Are you going to survive without taking that hit? So I think when there's more clarity on the actual rules, I think that'll make it far easier for all of the clubs involved.
Just lastly, I was going to ask you about the wingers and what you make of them, and also if the role of the wingers changed, because I was speaking to Nathan last week, and Lewis said it on yesterday's podcast as well, around the game being overcomplicated, basically players being overcoached. It's quite interesting because you're a coach now, so you can speak to, I know it's juniors, but do you think players are overcoached and the game's getting too complicated in general, or is that an unfair perception?
I think players have always been overcoached to a certain extent. I think because in England, we do that. I think if you look at the Brazilians and you hear what they do, they just let the guys go and play, go and have a ball, be free, have flair. But again, is that the right way, or is trying to coach them and teach them the game the right way? There's no right or wrong. I don't like it when you see coaches try and coach players out of things. So especially your attacking players, so your wingers and your strikers, they should be allowed to have freedom. They should be allowed to be creative, and you have to allow them to go and do their own things and make mistakes. You have to let them do that. And you look at the wingers now. There's some speed on those wings. Now, if that's their outstanding attribute and that's their strength, use it. If they're going to run the ball off the pitch a couple of times, or they're going to cross the ball out of play, so what? Because that one time that comes off, they're going to create so many more opportunities and just put pressure on the opposite team. So the players that are there now, I think, are fantastic. The attacking players, yeah, they need a little bit more coaching and they need a little bit more technical work. And I think their end product can be better. But you know what? So can the top players. You can always improve. You can always get better. So I think the players that are there are good. And to do with the coaching, it's difficult, obviously, because I'm probably that guy that they might look at and say, you're doing too much coaching, you're doing too much stuff. But the way football's gone, unfortunately, or not unfortunately, I think it's a good thing. Football is, you have to be intelligent to play it, the tactical side of it, and it's a game of chess. And you look at Pep Guardiola and how he's changed football since coming to the Premier League. Whether you look at it as unfortunate, he's changed football within this country, and you can't just do that off the cuff. You can't. You're seeing with England a little bit now that you can't just put 11 world-class players out on the pitch and it just fall together. It doesn't happen. You have to be coached, you have to be taught. And if everyone's on the same page, just like when we mentioned about Billy, everyone knew exactly what we needed to do in each position. And he didn't overcomplicate it. It was very simple, really, in what we needed to do. But if you take on the instruction, great. And Pep Guardiola's obviously just complicated it a little bit more. And all of us coaches are trying to follow in his footsteps and find the next way to beat his style of play. And football will always progress. And us as coaches, you have to, for me, you have to give as much, as many pictures and as many options to the players on the pitch as possible, so that when the situation happens, they know half what to do. Because if you just tell them to do it one way, when the opposition stop you doing that, then what's next? You're not going to be able to figure out a different outcome. You're not going to be able to figure out how to get past that. So I don't think there's a right or wrong way, but you have to coach them to a certain extent, but you also have to let players be free and be themselves. And if you put too much pressure on them to be something they're not, you're going to halt their progression.
Excellent. Right. I could pick up this conversation for another hour probably, but I've got another appointment at 11 and Paul's probably got lots to do. But I've really enjoyed this. Do us a favor if you haven't already, hit like on the video. It really helps us out, and you can subscribe and become a member, and love reading good reviews on iTunes. 5 stars only, hopefully. Yeah, so we'll be back later in the week, because I don't know what's happening as we record this, but been good to have your company, Paul. I hope you enjoyed that. I think it's really interesting to discuss your career, but coaching as well.
No, perfect. And hopefully be back on soon.
Yes, we would love to have you back on. But in the meantime, thanks very much to Paul. Have a good day, everyone, and we shall see you soon.